Hello and welcome to We Debate. I am Joe Munene. Now, we've all been horrified by cases of senseless attacks on women on the basis of how they were dressed. Away from such criminal acts that ought to be harshly dealt with, there are many instances when how people are dressed has been the subject of quiet and even loud judgments. Whether in our homes, workplaces, schools, on the streets, in places of worship or other social places, many are the voices that are quick to point out the inappropriateness of the dressing of those around them. But who really has a say on what is appropriate or not when it comes to dressing? Is it solely an individual's choice or a choice that society has to weigh in on and even dictate upon? This is good for debate.
The debate motion for tonight. Let it be resolved. My dress, my choice. Our debaters for tonight are, on the affirmative side of the debate we have Rita Kagera, women's rights activist. On the negative side of the motion we have Tanya Masharia, image consultant.
Rita Kagera, Tanya Masharia, welcome to this debate session. The motion up for debate, let it be resolved, my dress, my choice. Now, Rita, you are arguing on the affirmative side of this debate in support of that position. Tanya, you are in opposition. You stand against that motion. Now, you will each have 1 minute for your opening statements. We will start with Rita and then come to you, Tanya. After that, you will have 5 minutes to give a presentation on why your position is the valid side of this argument. After the 5 minutes, and they will be consecutive, we will then go into a rebuttal session where you will be responding to the respective arguments and views from your opponent. Now, as part of this debate, we have a panel of jurors.
And on the jury panel we have Juror 1, Mungaiwa Regina, political analyst. Juror 2, Bina Maseno, executive director, Badili Africa. Juror 3, Vivian Ta, fashion designer and political analyst.
Prior to the start of this debate, the jury members have been polled to ascertain on their position on this motion. And one of the jury members is in support. So Rita, you start with one juror, and 2 are against this motion. So Ndanya has a head start. At the end of the debate, the idea is that we will poll the jury team again to see whether any of you has been able to shift them to your side of the debate. Now, after we do the rebuttals, we'll be at the halfway mark. The second half will largely be questions and answers, and we'll start with cross-examination, your opportunity to ask each other a question. So to start off, we start with you, Rita, your opening statement, 1 minute.
Thank you, Joe. Comrades, there is no social revolution without the liberation of women. May my eyes never see and my feet never take me to a society where half the people are held in silence. I hear the roar of women, silence. I sense the rumble of their storm and feel the fury of their revolt. Thomas Sankara. Let me start by saying that women's rights are human rights. And I'm standing here today to support the motion saying affirmative yes. Women have a right to choose what to wear. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rita. Tanya, your 1 minute opening statement.
Thank you. A baby cries in the delivery room and is quickly passed to the nurse. And the nurse puts the baby in swaddling clothes that were chosen by the mom. You didn't have a choice. A toddler is picked for what clothes to wear by the parents. When you get to school, the choice of what to wear has been predetermined by that school. You get into the workforce, your choice of what to wear has already been predetermined by that organization or entity that you choose to work for. When you operate in an event and go to a social activity, that, in terms of what you decide to wear, has already been predetermined by the people who are making those choices for the event. Ultimately, when you die, the choice of what to wear is not yours. And therefore, I stand here to say that your dress, is not your choice. It is the choice of society, it is the choice of other people that determine what you will wear. And I stand and say that your dress never was and never will be your choice.
All right. Your dress never was, never will be your choice. Tanya, now, Rita, you have 5 minutes to make your case as we listen keenly. Over to you.
Thank you. Now, let me go back to where the phrase, my dress, my choice, was coined from. It was coined from when women got tired of their constitutional rights being violated, especially in public spaces. And it's sad that in this day and age, it has been trivialized to a discussion about what women are wearing instead of looking at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the gross violation of women, the sexualization of women, and the policing of women's bodies. Our Constitution clearly says equality and freedom from discrimination, that is Article 4, and enjoyment of rights and fundamental freedoms. This brings us to the question, what is decent and who is decent and who decides that? Maybe my worthy opponent will answer that. This is all about policing women's bodies. When somebody says no one has a right to choose what to eat, first, you've already violated a constitutional right of women. Policing of women's bodies and what women wear has also given perpetrators of very heinous crimes an excuse of giving reasons why they performed those crimes, which is really sad in this day and age. These restrictions on what women wear have made women vulnerable to patriarchy, and also it has led to women being sexualized, which is very wrong because this sexualization of women sadly never used to exist, especially if we look back before colonization in Kenya. The colonialists came to Kenya, brought in Christianity. If you look back at our traditional African community, women were free to wear whatever they want. Even today, some communities, like the Turkana, the Pokot, you go there, you'll see these beautiful beaded women wearing their skirts, their short skirts, and not even covering themselves, but they're enjoying their bodies. And colonization came with the gospel and Christianity, which preached the gospel of purity. This gospel of purity decided that what as Africans we wear is indecent, which is really sad. And it's sad that all that is still continuing today. So it means that colonialism is still existing up to this day. The perpetrators of violence towards women in public spaces, in private spaces, at workplace, it means that when people decide even what you're going to wear in workplaces, and in a country which strives for economic emancipation of women, it's very sad because your performance as a woman at work has now been trivialized to what you're wearing rather than what you can deliver. Women have a right to choose what they wear, and that should not be that should not be anybody's choice. Or if you wake up today and decide I'm going to wear this, nobody should judge you on what you're wearing. And the community or whatever the society says about decency, it's somebody's choice. It's not, if today I wake up in the morning and decide this is decent for me, the same constitution which protects me and my rights to wear this is the same constitution which protects, for example, like my worthy opponent of wearing what she's wearing. I think we are missing the bigger picture here. And as a country, a democracy, which we want to pride ourselves, we've moved on. It is sad that sometimes I get sad as today I'm standing here, I'm still discussing this topic of why women have a right to choose. But I'm hoping today, as I move forward, we are going to bury this discussion, and maybe my worthy opponent will come to my side and help me support this motion, which clearly states my dress is my choice since I'm a grown woman. And I sit at the grown women's table, and I'm hoping my fellow women too, we are sitting at the grown women table. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rita. I'm not too sure Tanya is convinced by your presentation, but now we'll give you, Tanya, 5 minutes to make your case.
I tend to think that the only dressing choice you have is for your salad. When you have your salad, you can choose the dressing that goes on top of it. But when it comes to dressing, I have 3 points that I want to bring out. The first one has to do with God's divine order. In the beginning, because of disruption, the woman, being the greatest influencer, influenced the man. And sin entered and disruption came. As a result, man had to be made for garments by God. That was the beginning of dress. Now, dress serves as a covering for the body, a beautifier, and a protection against the environment and all that it brings. Nature, culture, religion, climate, and other conditions and events determine what it is that people wear. When it comes to God's divine order, there are rules that people must follow that govern the way things are done. My second point has to do with culture. Humans came together and formed social groups, tribes, and created ways to distinguish themselves. Now, these groups have what we call etiquette. And etiquette is the customary code of polite behavior in society among members or groups based on social class or whatever the grouping is. Culture is not an individual thing. It is group developed. And so in order to change culture, it happens over time, and it's done in a group setting. For as long as you choose to be in the culture that you live in, there are rules that govern what you will wear and how you will wear it. And for me, the argument is not only about women, it is an argument for mankind. Both men and women must adhere to the codes of social behavior that are given to them. My third point has to do with fashion and design. As you think that you are the one who makes the choice of what to wear, on a very high level, that choice is made by Louis Vuitton, Chanel, bringing it local by Vivo. That's who decides what it is that you're going to wear. A designer will come up with a concept and think about what it is that they want the wearer to portray. And as a result, that wearer is subject to wearing what another person was thinking about and created. That then is popularized by places like where we are today, the media. And the media creates fashion, trends, trending topics, and the conversations that Joe was talking about in the beginning. These are popularized and as a result become what it is that we think we should wear, what we think we should use as a covering. Now, dressing is a language. It gives social signals. People make a judgment about you, 55% based on how you look. 38% is the tone of your voice, and 7% is your words, how clever you are, what schools you went to. So I say, not just to women, but to men as well. When you decide that you're going to wake up in the morning and do whatever you want, against all social codes and rules that have been laid out, then you will be subject to the judgments that the people make, because those are what guide the society. We say that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And those impressions are made the moment you leave where you live and come in to engage with other people. We also see that movie directors, writers will use clothing and give cues of what a character is. We will know whether a person is rich or poor, whether they come from a great background or not, whether they have influence, how smart they are, how much they earn, just purely based on how they look. And so for me, I say, your dress is not your choice. The choice has already been predetermined for you based on the culture and the society that you live in. The only choice you have for dressing is when it comes to your salad.
All right. Rita, your opportunity to respond to Ndenya's presentation. Your rebuttal, please.
Thank you, Ndenya. And I'd like to say you are clearly a worthy opponent. And I'd like to talk about Christianity. When you talk about Christianity, what are the values or the core values of Christianity? Christians are all loving, and mostly they live by one true gospel, which is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you're a Christian and your core values are saying we are all loving, inclusivity, then I beg to differ. Why, if you're all loving, is it that you need to dictate as a Christian, make somebody's choice for themselves, not allow them the freedoms to choose for themselves? The same way, if as a Christian, you say somebody is indecently dressed. If somebody is indecently dressed, according to Christianity, which if maybe this is a topic for another day, most atrocious and heinous crimes have been committed in the name of Christianity. But I think that's a topic for another day. If you see somebody indecently dressed, do you ignore that person and talk behind their back as a Christian, or you embrace that person, or do you judge that person as a Christian, which the gospel says you're not supposed to judge? You've talked about design. As we sit here, it would be very ignorant of us to say that we are wearing an African traditional attire. So the issue of design, which make us not choose what we are going to wear, design has progressed. But what we are wearing today is, if I told everyone in this room to draw or describe an African woman, a traditional African woman, or if you look at the CBC kids, when they are told to go to school in the African attire, what are they wearing? They are not wearing what we are wearing. We might be wearing Ankara, but it's modernized. So the issue of design, we cannot talk about it when it comes to it being able to dictate what we wear. At the end of the day, it's our choice. It's my choice to wear this, it's my choice to wear the Ankara, but I cannot sit here and say it is that is what people used to wear, and that is the correct attire which was pre-designed for us or chosen for us. The issue of, let me say the issue of culture, I've touched it on that a bit. If we go back to our cultural practices and what we used to wear, it's not what we are wearing today. And also to say that a child is born and the mother clothes that child, when you say the choices, especially for women, were made from the day they were born and they are not allowed to make a different change, even as a grown woman, I find that very difficult, because that would make us go back to the years where even women in Kenya never used to vote, to the point of where women never used to own land. And I was hoping we are not going backwards. So the issue of being born, a baby has no choice. A parent is responsible for that baby. But as you grow, when you become an adult, you have a right to choose. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I think that just to give context on the Christian, I think all religions, all the main religions actually put a lot of premium on dressing. I think even currently, if you look at what's happening in some countries like Iran, all in that context. But I'll give Tanya a chance to now respond to Rita's position.
It's wonderful to see the moderator getting involved in the conversation when he talks about religion. It's the place that I wanted to start. Everyone has a choice about what religion that they follow, or based on the society that they're in. And so when I hear you say that the colonialists brought to us religion or Christianity, I think that is an excuse. We as Africans had our own values. We call them African cultural etiquette. We had our own rules, and we had our own ways of worshiping God, which is what religion is about. every religion, as the moderator has said, has put a premium and a price on how people dress. Religion becomes a group of people that have come together and said that we will worship in a certain way. As a result, they create rules. Back to my first point about, one of my points about etiquette, that there are rules that govern how people operate. And so if you choose to be of a certain faith, and that faith dictates that you would cover your head or wear clothes that go to the ground, that is what you will do. You cannot be part of that group and then say, I'm going to do something different because that's what I feel. You have chosen to be in that group, therefore you are confined to the rules that that group comes up with. I do want to take a moment here and say that I apologize for the crimes and the ills that have happened against women. And I don't think that they've happened against women only, they've also happened against men. And I think that that states a different part of a conversation about the society and the soul of that society. When people are able to come against another human being and bring harm to that person, that has nothing to do with people's clothing, but has to do with the soul and the consciousness of the people. When it comes to dressing, from a branding and an image perspective, you are dressed the way you are dressed. And so you have a choice to make about making sure that people will address you the way you want to be addressed. I'll give the example of if I today decided to wear a uniform that the police wear. If someone running on the street was running away from a predator, they would come to me thinking that I, being the policeman or in a police outfit, will be able to help solve their problem. When they come to me, if I was to say, oh, you know what, just because I'm dressed like this doesn't mean that I'm a policeman and I can help you. I think in the same way, sometimes women tend to dress in ways that suggest that they are something that they are not, whether by knowing or not knowing. This conversation is about letting people wake up to the fact that how you dress determines how people perceive you and whether they think that you can do what it is that they ask you to do or not. So it's important that those are in the background when you wake up in the morning to pick a garment from your arsenal of garments. So there are certain perspectives of how the female gender has chosen to express themselves that may bring question in certain societies. And for me, the most important thing is to say that women are more than just what they are. They are the co-creators, the birthing agents. As a result, there's a way that they must carry themselves with dignity and decency. And that's not just for women, but it's for the society as a whole. The reason we don't walk around naked anymore is because the world changed, fashion evolved, and we were able to move from our skins and hides. We were not always naked. We had coverings, different kinds, but we moved from those coverings and picked up modern coverings based on the world that we live in. We live in a global village. And so as we interact with people from other parts of the world, we must respect them, and we show them respect by the way that we dress, the way that we carry our physical bodies and express ourselves. So dressing is a language, and speak the language of the people. Today I'm speaking English because everyone in this room will understand what I'm saying. If I began to speak in my mother tongue, not everyone would understand what it is that I'm saying, and they may not even accept the message that I bring. And so we must be sure that when we bring our messages across, when we speak the language that is dress, it is one that is socially acceptable in the cultures that we live in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. Dressing is a language, and we look at it within the context of a culture. I think I would like to just emphasize that in as much as religion has a big say in the values that people have, there are also those who don't subscribe to any religion and still are within the context of social norms. I don't know what, Rita, you would say to that.
Well, religion is a very,
it's key.
for me,
It's key.
Yeah, it's key. But I want to ask, who measures the degree of decency? Because
society? According to what Tanya is saying.
Society. Because unfortunately, there is a place we can go right now. If I ask you a question, do we look decently dressed according to the society? I'd like to say yes, but there are places we'll go, whether religiously or culturally, we are not dressed decently. So this is not something which is supposed to be like from an individual point of view for me to decide who is decent or not. Because right now, if I go to the Emirates, I have to cover my hair because I'll be indecent. Yet here, if you look at me, I'm decent. I would go to church right now. I'm a Roman Catholic and I'd be okay.
So it sounds like you're supporting Danya's position, that it's
no.
not your dress, your choice.
No, I'm saying it is not our position to decide who is decent or not. Okay. Everybody has a prerogative to wear whatever they want. The individual. But also it's don't, especially for me as an advocate of women, I don't like the fact that as a woman, you're made to be, you're seen as somebody who cannot think of where you're going. If I'm going for an interview, of course I know how to dress.
Your individual choice.
Yes.
All right. We are now at the halfway mark of this debate. In the second half, we will have questions and answers, starting with cross-examination between the two debaters, and then we will have questions from the jury panel. We take a short commercial break now. We will be right back. Welcome back to the debate. We start us off on this second half with cross-examination. We will start from the opposing side, Tanya. Your chance to ask one or two questions of your opponents and weaken or tear down the case that they have put forward. Over to you.
My wonderful opponent, Rita, my question is, why is it that when the topic of my dress, my choice is brought up, that for you it's only about women and the gender issue becomes a big deal?
Because it would be very ignorant of us not to know the statistics show most of the perpetrators or people who sexualize and violate women are men.
But yes. When we talk about that perpetration, in today's world we're dealing with social media, where violence against people is not physical. We recently saw where one of our high top ranking officials was torn down on social media based on his dress. So why don't you come in defense of those people?
I'd like to say that initially, since I'm an advocate of women's rights, I mostly deal with women issues. But we cannot ignore the current political, cultural, social environment whereby we've even had men having these issues of either being victims of sexual violence, and also you've brought about the current situation whereby a politician was attacked because of the way they were dressed. I'd like to say I do not now categorically defend women. I defend all people, women, children, as long as there is a violation of human rights. Thank you.
So why is it that we think that the violation comes as a result of what people are wearing and not necessarily the moral decay of people's morals?
But you are here as an opponent of a woman's choice of what to wear, which brings us to the point, most of these crimes or perpetrators claim they did that because we cannot ignore that. The excuse is because of what women were wearing, so that we cannot continue to ignore the fact that what women are wearing is an issue of discussion and is also a point of reference for this perpetrator.
Fantastic. So you brought me to the place that I wanted you to be. You talked about going to certain countries where you know for sure that there's a certain way that you would have to dress if you go to those countries. Why is it that we ignore that when it comes to the African context, and when we come to right here where we are at home, that there are certain rules that govern how it is that people should dress? So when they dress like that and there is some consequence for their action, it becomes an issue. Not that I condone what the actions usually tend to be, but there are rules. Why not just follow the rules?
I agree there are rules to be followed, but the point is, there are rules to be followed, yes, but does this give an excuse for a woman who is walking down the street for people to decide we are going to violate you because of what you're wearing?
So let's take you back to the story of the country that you talked about.
Yes.
If you go to that country and you are indecently dressed, what will happen to you?
You will get punished.
And you know that for a fact.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with our society. There are rules that govern how people should dress. And not just when it comes to walking down the street. If you came to work and your office dictates that you wear a certain thing and you came in something opposite of that, would you want them to keep you or to leave you alone?
I would want them to keep me, but I'm assuming, and this is where I have a problem, is whereby we want to put, especially, and this is not put on men, these pressures are always put on women. Where is it that people are assuming, because I'm a woman, I don't know how to dress?
I think I tend to disagree with that. When I talk about the workspace, for example, if you're a pilot, whether you're a man or a woman, there's a certain way that you will dress. If you decide that, oh no, I'm a woman, so I want to wear something different, that will not apply. Why? Because that society of the aviation world dictates that when you're flying that plane, you wear a certain thing.
And that is where my point is always being misconstrued, as whereby we are telling women to walk naked, number one, or whereby we are telling women you should fight. If you decided to choose a career in banking, for example, or a lawyer, so a few years ago, a lawyer could not go to work with locks. Even today, I'm not sure if they still have to cover if they have dreadlocks. If you're a woman, you've made that choice. Trust you me, you know. I'm talking about other instances whereby you're walking down the street and you're wearing this, and somebody decides you're indecently dressed, so they have a right to touch you.
And I think that indecently dressed often talks about exposure. And that's the story of the Garden of Eden. They were naked and unashamed. As a result, it didn't matter whether they had clothing or not. Enter the fall is where we find the story of having to cover. Men and women, being wired very differently, have different places that they must cover. And so the covering is part of the rules that were set up from the beginning. And we have no choice about that.
And that's why I've also said, you've talked about since way back, the time of Eden, people are not covering. But with time, people started wearing clothes. And yet, there's somewhere me and you would go, all of us, and we are indecently dressed. You've seen women who have to cover even their hands and their feet, they wear socks. So my point is, it's not our position to decide or to be the moral police of women. And I'm talking specifically about women because women are this, and I want to, let me ask you the question.
You're contradicting yourself because you're saying that there are societies where women have to cover. So
I'm giving an example.
But it is an example that women have to cover. Therefore, for them to live in that society, it dictates they should cover. And they know that. And because they've chosen to live there, they cover.
But it's their decision.
It's not
a decision which is mandated or being forced by somebody.
It is a decision that is forced on them. They have no choice in that decision. If they want to choose, they may have to choose a different society.
Which is what I'm saying, I'm speaking against. If you're not comfortable with that, you have a right to say no.
Rita, you have a chance now to ask 2 questions or 1.
I have 1 question to Ndenya. Do you think these same standards are placed on men?
I think that.
And if so, if not, explain.
All right. I said before that dressing is a language, and this standard is placed on humankind. If you want to interact with someone from a different language, you must learn their language. And so we say, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When people come to Kenya, there are certain rules and things that we have already prescribed for what people will do. During the pandemic, we all had to wear masks because it was mandatory. It was the rule that was set up by the world to protect each other. And so these rules are not there to inhibit anyone's rights or make them feel lesser of a human. These rules are there so that we can help each other live in peace and in harmony as a society. That's why the dress is there. Like I said before, and I'll repeat, etiquette is the customary code of polite behavior in a society among members of a group. So if you're in a group of religion, if you're in a group of school, if you're in a group at work, when you choose to be in that society and that group, then you choose to abide by the rules that have been set up. Dressing also is your systematic means of transmission and information about you as a person. And so don't say things that you don't want people to hear or to believe about you, because the reality is perception is reality.
Thank you for using the word choose over and over.
So it's an individual choice. All right.
I digress.
Now, any other question, Rita? Just
No.
the one. All right. So we cross over now to the panel of jurors. We will start with juror number 1. Mungai, you will ask 2 questions. All right. Please state the person to whom you are directing your question and then proceed.
Thank you very much, Joe. First of all, let me commend our debaters for taking their firm positions. It is good to justify what you believe in. Now, my first question will go to Rita, who is for pro-choice. When you were making your presentation, you mentioned scantily that what informed the September 2014 issue about a young lady being dressed down was her mode of dressing, which was a miniskirt. So you mentioned something about that thing appeared as an enabler to her being dressed down. Now, you also came and mentioned the issue about constitutionalism and Article 4, which gives people the right to do what they want. And that brought the issue about dressing how you feel like and how you want. But now I have a question. Where do you draw the line between constitutionalism and public morality? Because the Constitution has been written by society. The society, in this case, the state. But there is an issue about public morality, which does not have a designate people who write it. But it is an issue that is a reality. This is a reality that we are dealing with. Public morality with the nature of the sexist society that we have. So where do you draw that line? And then also respond to me if we are not to judge you by how you dress. What are we supposed to do? If we feel you are not dressed nicely, you have told us not to judge you, but do we have the latitude to guide you on how to dress in what we refer to as decency?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to say that when it comes to you've addressed that issue of that girl being stripped.
Yeah.
I want to approach this from this point. As a society, the same society, I'd like to think we are a society which protects, especially women and children, not attacks, which will now make me answer the second question. If you think somebody is indecently dressed, if you go back to our, like where I grew up, if the women, older women, not men, thought you were indecently dressed, what did they used to do? They'd approach you with kindness. Excuse me, young girl, with a lasso, they tie the lasso and take you away to talk to you. The issue I have here is when somebody attacks you, we've not solved the solution. When it comes to men, I just want men to be protectors. Whatever happened to men being like protectors of women, be a he for she. Thank you.
And I think just to emphasize on that point, I think the attacks on the women, it doesn't matter whether they are naked or dressed in a short skirt, are criminal.
Yes.
I think that is clear. All right. Second question.
Thank you. Now, for the second question to Ndenya, You gave a very classical introduction. It was very poetic. But in all those instances, I sensed most of them are from rigid social phases of life. Talked about birth, talked about going to school, you talked about your places of employment, and talked about death. So this seemingly seems to be a curtailed phase of life where people are not given the freedom to become who they want, to dress how they feel, or even to enjoy the freedoms that are granted in the Constitution. Now, my question is, where do you draw the line of freedoms that are granted in our Constitution and others are even granted by the social dictates of the universe, and how we dress? Where does man get the latitude to enjoy his freedoms?
Mungai, you're a writer. And you know, when you make descriptions of people, when you build characters, it's always around what they're wearing and how they're wearing that thing. We say freedom is not free. From time immemorial, the minute that there was disruption, we lost the choice that we had. As a result, we went into this state where rules and regulations became a part of the norm. If you want to dress and do whatever it is that you want to, you can do that in the confines of your home. However, when you walk out of your house and interact with other people, society, constitution, governments have set up rules. And those rules are not just to protect an individual. Like I said before, culture is group developed. And so is constitution, like you rightfully said when you were speaking with Rita. And so when you want to enjoy those things, you lock yourselves in the confine of your home. You can even walk back naked and no one will ask you. But for the moment that you step out into the public domain and walk in and begin to interact with other human beings of the same society, of the same religion, of the same structure, life is about structure. And in those structures, which is why I gave the examples, there are rules that govern those structures.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mungai. Bina, your question?
Thank you so much for this debate. I think my question goes to Tanya. And from where I sit, I want to ask, is professionalism a thinly veiled guise for discrimination? When it comes to policing, for instance, how people dress, and maybe in this case, how women dress, is it really a question of professionalism, or is it a question of exerting power? And I'm saying this because when you look at, let's say, people who wear tattoos, people who wear dreadlocks and colored hair, these are individuals who have been discriminated against just because of the tattoos or maybe the dreadlocks. But does it mean that just because they show up that way, it takes away from their ability, for instance, to create content? Does it take away from their intelligence just because of how they show up? And if you please, while I was listening to the different arguments you gave, and I think you also insisted of rules created by individuals who come together, who exactly benefits from these rules? And who are the majority who actually make these rules? And do you think that these social constructs especially affect women's opportunities when it comes to their participation in the political and socio-economic processes? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. You are beautiful today, and I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that the many women in this room are here. And by just looking at us, there's a choice that we made this morning about what we will wear. To be decent was one of the things that we thought of, and covering up our private parts was a very big part of that conversation as we thought about it in the morning. Now, I keep saying that the rules are created by the group of people that come together. And who does it benefit? Ideally, they try to benefit everyone in the society or everyone in the group. Now, the world is evolving. It has evolved, fashion and style have evolved from the mid-centuries to now. Before, in our society, for example, there was a woman who went to the UK, came back with a suitcase, and she determined what the style was going to be and where the length of the skirt was going to be because she was the shopper. Today, on the click of your phone, you can see what somebody is wearing in Paris, what somebody is wearing in another part of the world. And you can then think that you're going to make a decision to look like or dress like another person in another part of the world. However, you live, work, operate in Kenya. And so as a result, there are certain rules that govern us, not just as Kenyans, but as Africans. Our African cultural etiquette has its own rules as well that dictate to us what it is that we will do and not do as far as our dressing is concerned. I want to bring this debate back to the point that it's not always and only about women. And yes, the women have struggled and have to work a little harder than the men. However, the conversation about dress is about everybody. It's about that you dress the way you want to be addressed. When you choose to get out of your house in the morning, you dress for success. Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to make it in life. And your dressing is the language that tells us that you are moving in that direction. If you choose not to be that successful, or you don't want to be part of a community, then find an island and live on your own, and then you can do whatever you want.
Point of interjection,
Right.
Mr. Moderator. Just a quick one. So, from where you stand, is it to say that it's okay to be discriminated if you don't meet the rules of professionalism? Is that what you're agreeing to?
And I think the word discrimination is inappropriate when it comes to dressing. I said before that people make a judgment about you. This is science, it's statistics that has been done, that people make a judgment. When you sat there, you made a judgment about me based on how I look, based on the makeup I have, the hair that I have, the jewelry I have. Those judgments could have been calculations based on price. You could even have determined where it is that I live or what school I went to. Purely, I never opened my mouth to speak. And so for me, the 55% is a C. You don't want to get into an exam and start at 0, start at the C. And so we say, if there are rules that are set up, for example, when the people play sports, if I'm playing soccer, then I will abide by the soccer rules. If I bring basketball rules to the soccer game, then I've already lost before I've even begun. And it's the same when it comes to dressing. Dressing is a language, and it has been dictated for us by society, culture, religion, and the other things.
I think success is subjective, but I shall leave it to the rest of us to engage.
Success is subjective. All right. Vivian Ta, over to you.
Tanya and Rita, thank you very much for your very well articulated arguments. My question is to Rita. So there's a time when the late Mutula Kilonzo was Minister for Education. And during his tenure, there's a suggestion about allowing school-going children, school-age children, to be allowed to wear, short skirts, mini skirts, and all that. And there was, an uproar, basically from the society. So my question is actually two in one. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on, is your dress your choice strictly about decency? And at what age do you believe, for both gender, for both male and female, at what age do you believe your dress becomes your choice?
Thank you for that question. I'd like to answer this question also as a mother. As much as I'm saying I'm pro-choice, we are talking about young children in mostly likely primary school. And as much as I've said I'm against people being told what to wear, especially women, I do not disagree. This does not mean I do not agree with the rule of the law. When it comes to kids, the Ministry of Education has dictated what the kids should wear. I do not agree with kids who are under their parents or guardians for them to make their own decision. And this is where I had a problem when my worthy opponent, Tanya, was saying you're born, you grow. Of course, even as a parent, I have kids. My son went to university. I had to let go. There is a limit to where you cannot dictate what a child, like a grown person, does. But when it comes to children, I also draw the line. And I don't want people to misconstrue what we are saying. We are not saying children should be allowed to run wild or do whatever they want. Or if it's an institution, if you join this institution and there are laws to follow, it's your choice to follow those rules. If you then make a choice not to follow them, then you have a right to remove yourself. So I'd like to imagine as a woman specific, or as a man, when going to an institution, you've agreed. Even when the kids are going to university, they are given a set of rules to follow. They have a right to agree or disagree, but a minor is supposed to be under the guardianship of a parent.
So in your view, my dress, my choice applies only to above 18, like in our context of Kenya?
As long as somebody is under their parents or a teenager, it's the parent also who makes the choice for that child, not a child who is allowed to just wear whatever they want. Because then
that makes it subjective. If you're under your parents and you're 29, for example, does that mean?
No, I've spoken about, let's say roughly somebody of 18.
So let's just say constitutionally 18 years and below, yes, the parents can dictate, yes, or choose, yes, but as long as you're above 18, yes, yes, even if you're still under your parents or guardians' home, yes, you should be free to wear whatever you, yes, want. So the other part maybe you did not touch on that you can just finish on is, do you believe my dress, my choice is solely or strictly about decency, like being decent?
No.
Maybe you can expound a little bit.
I'd like to say the caption or the hashtag my dress, my choice was brought about, or I like to take that term as a song of freedom or as a statement of freedom. This is a women, or a cry for women, just women wanting to have a choice, to make a choice when it comes to education, when it comes to what they wear. And that's why I'm saying people should look at the bigger picture. And I'm glad I'm on this platform, because it has been trivialized. Even we've been told, we've been advocating for women to walk naked, which if they want, it's their prerogative. But I'd like to say the campaign is beyond what the issue of dressing. It's about being given equal opportunities at work, not somebody judging your ability to deliver at work with how you're dressing. I think the world has moved so much. If you look at people who work in Google, they don't wear the normal or according to society, and they deliver. And it's among the biggest tech company. So I think we need to focus less on the dressing code and more about the opportunities of women and giving women a chance and not judging them. Thank you.
Okay, and that example of Google, I think you mean they don't have the normal, yes, tie, suits kind of attire. But yeah, I want to believe they are decent, even if it's a t-shirt, it's a decent piece of clothing.
I do want to throw in there that, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg may be in t-shirt and jeans when he makes the presentation, but when he goes to Capitol Hill, he will be in a suit. And so dressing is a language. And depending on where it is that you are, you must adhere to the rules of where it is that you're going to be.
All right. Rita, maybe could the challenge be that some of the instances we've had was because someone was dressed but in a context that was wrong? For example, if someone is going out to a club, there's a certain dress code that clubs might all align to. But if you then are walking on a street with people who don't see things from your viewpoint, so could it also be an issue that we are not applying the context of how the dress is being put out?
It does. It has nothing to do whether you're in a club or you're in a woman. Unfortunately, this discussion has to be had, and I have to mention this. A woman will be violated even wearing a full hijab. So that's why I'm saying the picture is big. It's not about what people are wearing. And as I said, even if you think somebody's, how many women have looked like this, what we are wearing, and we go to a bus stop and somebody's trying to hold us, to help us. That is already a violation of my space. So I don't want this discussion to go back where it used to be, where everything was about the reason you are not supposed to pass here, you are supposed to be in a club. Why are you dressed like this here? Women have a freedom to walk wherever they and I'm happy. Right now I see women on the streets of Nairobi, shorts, wearing shorts, walking around.
There's an order and a way that things are done. Right. If we violate that, then we enter into a space where if it's free for all, that's why governments are there, to bring rules. Without rules, there's anarchy. Without the things, people go astray. And then the violations move from even just being the ones for stripping, but taking away what belongs to other people.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this Q&A session. Now is your chance to give your closing summary. We'll start with you, Rita. 1 minute max, closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you, jurors, my worthy opponent. As I close this discussion, I'd like to say the key word we've had here, even my worthy opponent unknowingly has used that word. It's a choice. And we have that freedom as women. And I hope the way our country is heading, I'd like to say when this hashtag was coined by women, me included, because I was there organizing the protest, we have made milestones. And I'd like to see the milestones going forward. And I want to believe that if we talk about emancipation of women, which political, economical, I'd like to say how women dress should be their own choice. The key word here is choice. And we need to stop policing women's bodies. Because when we start policing women's bodies, everything goes down and spirals out of control. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Tanya, your closing statement.
I'll repeat what I started with. Culture is group developed. It is not an individual thing. You cannot shove down people's throats your ideologies, perceptions, and ways of doing things. Dressing is a language. And for me, I stand for decency. I stand for God's divine order of the way things are meant to be. And I also say that if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, it's easy to do good. And if you do good, there's nothing you cannot change, not even the world. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now we have to stop this debate at this point. Thank you to our two debaters. Strong positions from each side. I'm not sure the jurors have changed their minds, but we now find out.
At the beginning of the debate, 2 jurors were in support of the motion, 1 was against. Have the debaters managed to win over the jurors with their arguments?
So at the end of this debate, the jurors' positions are as follows. 2 of the jury members are in the opposition side, and 1 is in support of this debate. I think some of the jurors may have switched, but I think the verdict goes to the no side. Well, that's the position of the jury. Do you agree with it? We welcome your feedback and comments on this debate. Please engage us on our social media handles appearing on your screen right now. That's it for this edition, and a big thank you to our 2 debaters. Thank you to members of the jury panel, our location host, the Norfolk Hotel, and the KTN team behind this production. I'm Joe Munene, and I thank you, the viewer, for watching this edition of We Debate. We'll see you at the next debate. Thank you.